We are looking to be more welcoming and more open, and to say all people are welcome in the church.
Chicago Town spicy sauce.
And Super Bowl heart and soul, freedom and liberty.
Cheese.
Thank you, USA. You are my best friend.
In the unity of the working classes, all means of production will cease through evolution, forever and ever.
The Catholic Church, a prestigious religious body that's never been involved in any controversies at all.
Behold, the great Queen Spider! Queen Spider?
It's hard these days to imagine anything giving people hope for more than 5 minutes, so to last 2,000 years is actually a pretty good run. And they've only had massive existential crises like 1,000 times, just as God intended.
Catholics have more freckles.
Protestants hate ABBA.
The modern Catholic Church, to the relief of papists the world over, has long since left its more tumultuous times behind. Goodbye, Crusades. Farewell, Borgias. Hello, massive child abuse scandals that turn more Christians to atheism than Reddit and Richard Dawkins combined, but even that last kerfuffle was years ago at this point. Only old people, like me, who grew up Catholic, remember such trivial things. These days, the real controversy surrounding the Catholic Church is the heated debate that's keeping every American who converted to Catholicism to own the libs up at night, and that no one outside of America gives a single fuck about. Namely, is the Pope woke?
I do think one of the dark horses, and I think unfortunately he's one of the most progressive, is Cardinal Prevost.
Jesus would do the same. I don't know if he'd get so political in that. Right. I mean, when you look at his Twitter feed, he was for open borders in the United States and kind of took pot shots at J.D. Vance and the Trump administration.
This thing was baked by the Curia. This was rigged greater than the 2020 election against President Trump. Now,
for fuck's sake. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did this even become a question that had to be asked? Pope John Paul II allegedly covered up more cases of noncing than the BBC did in the 1970s, and not only was his successor, Benedict XVI, implicated in that scandal, but he also spent his childhood in the Hitler bloody youth. Well, we're not talking about that era of popery, papacy, because that's the Jimmy Savile era of the church. No, we're more in the Blue Peter era. We're talking about new Pope, Pope-a-Polar, if you will. A version of the Holy See that is forward-thinking, kind to minorities, and fighting for peace and justice. That is, for a pope. Let's not get too crazy here. Jesus himself would probably have approved much more of the late pope's stance on Gaza and refugees than he would his wavering on queer rights, from weirdly supportive to saying there were too many slurs at the Vatican. Still, the absolute queen of this era, R.I.P., that's rest in Pope, was Pope Francis, an Argentinian man and a Jesuit who spoke out against everything from capitalism to the current horrors in the Eastern Mediterranean, to the point where you could be forgiven if you weren't paying too much attention to thinking he was channeling Fidel Castro, including the homophobia. Alas, Pope Francis was too good for this world, and thus he died before I could ever release a video analysing whether he was in fact woke, or whether he just seemed that way in comparison to literally every other pope in existence, because he was actually, trying to embody some of the teachings of his best friend Jesus Christ, rather than trying to build a dynasty, launch a military invasion of the Near East, or, God forbid, host Top of the Pops. Fear not, however, dear viewers, for we already have a new pope. In the land of the Vatican, in the fires of St. Peter's Basilica, white smoke emerged from a chimney that's technically not in the city of Rome, and, though we might have all thought this smoke meant that a new pope had been elected, in fact, instead, it was simply the sweet, sweet sign of a Chicago deep dish pizza.
Chicago Town spicy sauce.
The only genuine home-of-the-range born in the USA.
New Pope.
Listen, we all, presumably, I know you very well, had our favourite papabile we were rooting for to take up the most important job in Catholicism. I was personally rooting for Filipino bad bitch Cardinal Tagle. Alas, we did not get the Pinoy Pope. You might have been hoping for Cardinal Pizzabale. You know, if only for the means, come on. You might, if you were me, have read too many social media posts that made it look like the only American that was up for the job was basically Donald Trump's suggestion of making Trump himself Pope, in the form, of course, of Cardinal Holden Bloodfeast.
I'd like to be Pope. That would be my number one choice.
Instead, another American was revealed, and he's from Chicago. So you be good to Papa, and Papa will be good to you, and all that jazz. The new Pope, the new voice of God on earth, was revealed in the year of our Lord 2025 to be Robert Francis Prevost, newly dubbed Leo XIV, an Augustinian man who is both American and Peruvian, and named himself after Pope Leo XIII, also known as the Workers' Pope, a man who emphasized workers' rights and the necessity and legitimacy of trade unions. And as everyone who has of course been reading the Pope Crave Twitter account knows, a Pope's name is a message of intent. Which leads us to the obvious question on everyone's lips. Is the new Pope woke?
You know, he was for open borders in the United States and kind of took pot shots at J.D. Vance and...
Well, luckily for the entire congregation, I have answers, and I will be dishing them out just like that good Chicago town pizza. You see, I am Brigitte Empire, science and culture correspondent for the most heavenly of British newspapers, the Daily Telegraph. The only newspaper that missed out on Britain leaving the Catholic Church, because Dan here spent the entire reign of Henry VIII trapped in the Tower of London after Henry mistook him for one of his many wives. Dan had a lot more charm back then. So fear not, we're here to take you through the most woke and unwoke positions of the Chicago town Pope, a man whose vestments are stuffed crust and whose opinions on gay people are not as good as his already questionable predecessors' ones. Shall we begin? Okay, say 3 Hail Marys and we can get started. First Hail Mary, the newly dubbed Pope Leo was an ally of Pope Francis. Unlike the other American that was showing up in the running, there was the Yankee equivalent of the Croatian priests who joined the Nazi puppet state there and now have statues built in their honor, as if they didn't kind of play fast and loose with the whole, thou shalt not kill commandment and the love thy neighbor thing. Second Hail Mary, in his former life as Robert Prevost, Leo tweeted out many criticisms of the Trump administration's evil policies, including specifically sharing critiques of why Donald Trump's anti-immigrant rhetoric is problematic, and articles with such lines as, "The problem with this hierarchy is that it feeds the myth that some people are more deserving of our care than others. It's a framework that makes sense in a world governed by scarcity and fear, where protection comes at the expense of others. But Jesus never speaks of love as something to be rationed. He speaks of love as abundance, a table where there is enough for everyone. Colonial ideology has conditioned us to think in binaries and hierarchies. Who is in and who is out, who is first and who is last. We struggle to fathom a love that is not ranked, that does not sort people into categories of worthiness. But Jesus seemed to be inviting us into a different world altogether, one where love moves freely and without hierarchy, breaking down the borders we've been taught to build." Whoa, okay. Hold on there, Leo. Sounding pretty woke there, bud. You better pull back on the whole love thy neighbor shit before the most righteous Christians in your country come to get your ass. Love thy neighbor? That's basically communism. And communism isn't at all compatible with Christianity because Karl Marx was Jewish. Unlike our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Wait a minute.
Oh, Jesus would do the same. I don't know if he'd get so political, and that they're going to have to be careful of.
Alright, let's stop thinking about that before we invite another schism. Third Hail Mary, Pope Leo IV hates J.D. Vance specifically, continuing in the tradition of his predecessor and presumably preparing for revenge against the US Vice President, but doing to the Pope what Liz Truss did to the Queen. I can only assume the Pope has to have so much aura when it comes to immigrants' rights, being pro-gun control, speaking out against the need for action to prevent climate change, specifically asking for Kilmar Abrego Garcia to be returned, and slamming Nayib Bukele, the only Palestinian man Trump seems to like, slamming him specifically, and solidarity with the Global South, because he's trying to make up for his disappointing but extremely typical for a Pope views on LGBTQ rights. Speaking of aura, this video is sponsored by Aura. If you're anything like me, you're constantly getting hit with spam messages offering you credit in strange languages, or weirdly info-dumping random facts about the Roman Empire. Actually, the latter one is fine, I just like to know where it came from. Well, if you too are suffering from spam PQR, You may have had your phone number or email sold to marketers, scammers, or even stalkers by data brokers. Now, this is a reversible process, so you can stop having to learn about why Julian the Apostate decided Christ wasn't cool anymore. But while these brokers are legally required to remove your info upon request, they don't make this process easy or transparent. So, if you want someone to take care of that for you, and never have to learn about what crossing the Rubicon means, then I recommend today's sponsor, Aura. Aura takes care of the hard part for you, automatically getting your information off these sites and keeping it that way. In addition to this, Aura will alert you if your info is found on the dark web, give real-time fraud alerts, and provides a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and 24/7 support services. That sounds better than getting emails about Hadrian's Wall every day, no? If you're interested, you can go to aura.com/BridgetEmpire, that's aura.com/BRIGITTEEMPIRE to start your 14-day free trial of Aura today, to keep your data secure and to support the channel. You can also scan the QR code on your screen right now, and avoid typing in anything that might accidentally remind you of Imperial Rome. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring this video. So, you might be thinking at this point, damn, this Pope is actually woke! He's goddamn woke! With apologies to the Pope for that language. Well, hold your papal horse there, because this is the Catholic Church we're talking about here, and the guy in charge of it. I think in recent years, people got a little spoiled by Francis being marginally to the left compared to, well, every other Pope in the entirety of human history. Though people forget that, the Holy See, the Vatican, there's no space for democratic politics there. This is the head of the Catholic Church, and as such, a woke Pope is a little bit of an oxymoron. I mean, in its original definition, before white people came and ruined it, woke did mean to be aware and alert to systemic racism, and I suppose given Leo's position on refugees and immigrants, he'd probably be kind of there with Francis on that stuff. But since the right wing in every Western country completely mangled the word woke, people now use it to mean everything from uses a paper straw to mildly criticizes the Third Reich.
The removal of so-called woke flags.
But one of the most common ways Western politicians and media personalities have been using woke since they stole the word from black people, a fittingly unwoke thing to do in the first place, is to imply someone is, or is friendly to, gay and trans people. And, in that sense, the Chicago town Pope is even less woke than Francis. And he was the one using the F slur in official communication.
Pope Francis has previously expressed his doubts about candidates with homosexual tendencies entering the seminary.
The new Pope confirmed in a meeting with the Vatican diplomatic corps that the family is founded on the stable union between a man and a woman.
You see, while Pope Francis was the most progressive Pope on women and queer issues to date, he was still the Pope. And as such, if he were a politician in a normal country, we would be giving him much more of a side-eye. But he's not. He did a lot of dragging the church into the present, even if he was a few years behind the curve on the rhetoric itself. Francis put a lot more women in positions of authority in the church than any other pope. But that's still not a whole lot of positions, and they still can't be priests. He also kept to the line that abortion is murder and a grave sin. According to 19th News on queer issues, he had a lot more to say, such as in 2013, "Someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge?" But then he also said homosexual activity is intrinsically disordered. In May 2018, Pope Francis said to a gay man, "God made you like this and he loves you." In 2023, he said, "Being homosexual isn't a crime," and criticised laws criminalising homosexuality as unjust, which is actually a really big deal, given the influence the Catholic Church has on countries implementing anti-gay laws in sub-Saharan Africa. But he made sure to clarify that the official view of the church is that homosexuality is sinful, which in a regular society is the standard liberal Catholic position. Hate the sin, not the sinner. When really, when you do that, you are inherently kind of, hating the sinner by proxy. In 2023, Pope Francis made official that trans people can be baptized and serve as godparents under certain circumstances. He allowed blessings of gay couples, but not marriages between them. And in March 2024, he approved a declaration that called gender-affirming surgery a grave violation of human dignity. Hey, grave violation of human dignity! That's me! So, decidedly not woke on women's issues and queer issues then, but a massive step forward compared to the long line of some of the most conservative men on earth that came before him. Men who saw the whole love thy neighbour thing and the fact that Jesus was friends with outcasts of all stripes and just, simply chose not to see it. So is Pope Leo woke? Well, no, obviously. If anything, he's a slight rightward shift from Francis, but Francis wasn't really woke either. He was the bloody Pope. From the way people talk about him, you'd think he was Jeremy Corbyn Investments. Do I think he was the best pope we could have had? Absolutely. I kind of even admired the guy, despite him saying I'm a grave violation of human dignity, to which I can only assume that he's seen my search history. And despite the fact that I stopped believing in Catholicism a good 12 years ago at this point, in favour of being an internet edgelord who's married to science like a little fucking dork. But he was still the Pope. And you could say the same thing about the new Pope, who, on women's issues and queer issues, said that ordination of women doesn't necessarily solve a problem, and might make a new problem, that he opposes abortion. And on teachings on gender in schools, when Bishop in Peru stated, in an almost Rowlingish flair, that the promotion of gender ideology is confusing, because it seeks to create genders that don't exist. Now, for a Pope, that's not a lot of bad things to have said. But is it woke? Only if our standards are extremely low. Look, I'm optimistic, but as far as I'm concerned, for me to really think this guy is going to even get close to Francis's impact on making the Catholic Church less awful, he's going to have to match Francis's actions on Gaza, where he called into the Catholic Church there during the horrors regularly. In fact, checking in on Palestine was one of the last things he did, calling in and checking in on the terrified congregation there, people he spoke to regularly, and in a last act of solidarity, insisting that his Pope-mobile be converted into a health clinic for Gaza. That is the kind of action that I was brought up to believe Catholicism was about. But then I, saw the news about the scandal and read books and met more people, and let's just say I think the signal got a little bit patchy between heaven and Rome, And the new Pope did use his first Sunday blessing to call for a ceasefire, but that's pretty standard at this point. Until he does what his predecessor did and makes it personal, puts himself in the way of this, I'll keep holding my breath. But of course, no matter what positions the new Pope might have had on any number of issues, from being iffy on queer rights to being good on immigration, for the American right, who for some reason went from thinking all Catholics were the spawn of Satan to thinking the Vatican was based and red-pilled, unless the new Pope comes out and says Hitler was good actually, they're going to be going absolutely batshit. Like this guy, who's already transvestigating the Pope, claiming he has a bio-female skull, or the cries of people already shaking and throwing up, imagining a Pope that's basically if Vladimir Lenin wasn't an atheist. Like these extremely normal tweets from Laura Loomer and friends.
Woke Marxist Pope! This is the new Pope! His name is Robert Prevost! He's the first American Pope! He is anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, pro-open borders, and a total Marxist like Pope Francis! Catholics don't have anything good to look forward to! Just another Marxist puppet in the Vatican!
The new Pope supports illegal aliens' open borders. He retweeted tweets in support of dreamers, aka illegals, and attacked President Trump's use of the phrase bad hombres to describe violent illegal aliens. He thinks it's a racist phrase. We might be cooked. If he's a terrible Pope, y'all welcome in our churches. But if he brings back crusades, inquisition, witch trials, stay strong with the Catholic Church. We're with ye! This is so bad!
This is all a very calculated move, people. It is time to wake up, triple prayer emoji. They chose a globalist and woke Pope from the West on purpose to stand up and criticize the leaders of the free world.
Trump is not the problem. Woke ideology is the problem. People like you are the reason I left the Catholic Church. I hope more leave after the Vatican, electing 2 Marxists in a row. Disney must own the Vatican. Another commie Pope. Martin Luther had it right. Tear down the Vatican walls, you Marxist hypocrite! I don't care what you think, Mr. Pope. And neither does MAGA. Don't bother trying to interfere. You'll only lose more adherents. I walked away decades ago, before you Marxists took over. Thank God. Listen up, pal. We Americans do not want f***ing immigrants destroying our country, all whom were brought in by a rogue president whom is a f***ing criminal. You want to see war? Back the F up, motherfucker! Anger face emoji! So, were these incredibly cool and normal commenters on X.com, the everything app, right? Is Laura Loomer, a woman who spent the days leading up to the last election taking so many private jet rides with Trump that credible speculation arose that they might be a couple, the one true authority on the future direction of the Catholic Church, despite looking like the smiling Titan? Well, no. As much as I would love it to be true, the first Pope to be able to say, "Bitch, I am from Chicago," is not a woke Marxist Pope. But, Leo, mate, I know you can understand this because you're American, you speak English. You have a long time to prove me wrong. I don't think it's likely, but you could do it. Come on, the last time we had a Pope whose native language was English, That was Breakspear. That's a cool as hell name. You could be the new Breakspear. Except woke. So, Wokespear? Come on, Leo. Read the Communist Manifesto on the Vatican balcony. Insist on replacing the Bible with the conquest of bread. You know you want to. If only to piss off your lifelong enemy, J.D. Vance. In fact, if you really want to get your papacy off to a good start, why not excommunicate that little weasel? Give him a good old hillbilly eulogy, eh? I'll be waiting. And until you take that vital first step, goodbye, unwoke Pope. And thanks for watching. God, look what you've done. You're a woke Marxist Pope, and you pray at the church, oh mama. I'm at the Vatican, and I'm praying with ease. It's where I belong, 'cause I'm the woke Marxist Pope. I'm gonna keep on praying like a woke Marxist Pope. I'm gonna keep on saying that I'm Catholic and woke. I'm gonna keep on praying I'm a woke Marxist Pope. Woke Marxist Pope. Hey, thank you for watching this video all to the end. If you like this video, like it, leave a comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it. And if the sponsor did go through on this one, then maybe you consider going without a link to help me get more sponsors so I can have more money. Or you could just give me money directly, which is probably, that's also a thing you can do. You can give me donations on Coffee or PayPal, links below as always. Or sign up to my Patreon. We get early videos, access to the members-only Discord, money to switch friend codes, and other stuff like exclusive content. And you get your name read out at the end, like these lovely people. Lee Wilkins, George Geddes, Kira B, No Sparkling Heart, Corey, Mac J, Mightier Than the Sword, Carolyn, Imogen Q, Luciano Frias Andrade, Adam, Harry, N-Dog, 191, Cav, Quesadilla de Tortilla, Azul, Liron, Adam Lees, Daniel Nevels, no, not that, Paul, MB, Madeline Aguirre, Ben Murphy, Lex Phoenix, Enter the Kurzitz, Mira D, Jade Senior, Boa Ea, James W, Marv and All, Thorngil, Bob the Builder, 5445554, Deborah Laboon, Vegas, Zillas Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Amelia Lisette, Jason Haig, Fred McManus, Susan Foster, Helena Rial, Sierra Whiskey, Orestria, Ali Catgill, John N, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Vader, Robin Podolsky, Turtle Choom, Casual Observer, Manta Ray, Courtney, Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Brogger, Soma Piglet, Brain, Do, Sharty, Wolf, Greg Noble, Deanna McMillan, Caroline Megalado, Alexandra Lilly, Howard Lott, Nera Nia Scotland, and Joey Coble, and everyone else who I love. Jesus Christ. The amount of times during this video where a motorbike has gone past very loudly, I'm actually genuinely starting to think the Inquisition is coming for me. So, if I die after this video, you'll know why. God, look what you've done. You're a woke Marxist Pope, and you pray at the church, oh mama. I'm at the Vatican, and I'm praying with ease. It's where I belong, 'cause I'm the woke Marxist Pope. I'm gonna keep on praying like a woke Marxist Pope. I'm gonna keep on saying that I'm Catholic but woke. I'm gonna keep on saying I'm a woke Marxist Pope. Woke Marxist Pope. God, look what you've done. You're a woke Marxist Pope. You did the job. Oh my God. Why did I do this? Why do I do this? It was a stupid fucking idea.